I never thought my son simply walking into a neighborhood park would turn into a full-blown scene. But that's exactly what happened. We were just trying to enjoy a normal Saturday, nothing fancy. My 15-year-old son had gone ahead of me, earbuds, in hoodie on, just being a regular teen. I was parking nearby when my phone buzzed, and I saw a call from him. He didn't say much, but I could tell something was wrong. His voice was tight. That's when I heard a woman in the background demanding. He stated his business and saying he didn't look like he belonged there. At first, I thought it might be a misunderstanding. Maybe someone was being overly cautious. But as I walked up and saw what was happening, my heart dropped. A middle-aged woman, one of those people who always act like they're in charge, was standing in front of my son with her phone out, talking to 911. She was describing him like he was some kind of threat. My son stood there frozen, unsure what to do. He wasn't being loud, wasn't doing anything wrong, just standing, waiting on me. She had no clue who I was, no idea she was talking about the son of the town's police chief. And honestly, I didn't. Want to lead with that? I wanted to see just how far she'd go based only on what she thought she saw. Would she stop if I asked her calmly? Would she even believe me? Or was this going to turn into something worse? What happened next not only shocked her, but left the entire park watching in disbelief. You won't believe what she said when I finally spoke up and how quickly her attitude changed once she learned the truth. Let me walk you through exactly how it all went down. As I walked closer, I could see my son's eyes searching for mine, trying to stay calm but clearly shaken. The woman, now pacing a little, kept her phone to her ear, loudly describing my son's appearance like she was reporting some kind of threat. Black male, about 6 feet, wearing a dark hoodie, alone, acting suspicious. That last part really got me. Suspicious? He was standing by a tree, scrolling his phone, waiting for his dad. That's it. But to her, that was enough. I stood about 10 feet away for a second, just watching. She hadn't noticed me yet. A few people were staring, some whispering, but no one stepped in. That's when I saw the park security slowly make his way over, clearly unsure of how to handle it. I could tell he didn't want to get involved too deeply, but Karen, yeah. I'll call her Karen, kept insisting he do something. Are you just going to let him loiter here? What if he's up to something? The security guard looked from her to my son, then back again, clearly uncomfortable. My son stayed silent, eyes down, just trying to keep it together. I know how I raised him. He's respectful, smart, and doesn't cause trouble. But in that moment, I saw him trying to shrink himself, trying to look less threatening, just so he didn't escalate the situation. That was when I stepped in, slowly and calmly. I said, "Is there a reason you're questioning my son?" She turned to look at me, and her whole posture shifted, but not in the way you might think. She actually doubled down, waving her phone and saying she was just being a good neighbor. I could tell this was going to be one of those situations where logic wasn't going to get through. But I stayed calm, holding back what I really wanted to say, because I knew the moment she found out who I was, everything would change. I looked her in the eye and repeated myself, a little firmer this time. "Why are you questioning my son?" She crossed her arms, eyes narrowed, and replied, "I don't need a reason. I live here. I'm just trying to keep the park safe." She glanced at the security guard like she expected backup, but he just shifted on his feet, clearly wishing he was anywhere else. That's when I realized this wasn't just about my son. This was about control. She wasn't protecting anything. She just didn't like seeing someone who looked like him in what she thought was her space. Still, I didn't tell her who I was. I wanted to see how far she'd take this. She kept trying to talk over me, telling the security guy to check if he even lives around here, and asking if there were rules about loitering. Meanwhile, my son stood silently, still holding his phone like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. I could feel my blood boiling, but I had to stay composed. That's when another voice entered the scene. An older man who'd been sitting on a bench nearby stood up and said, "He's not bothering anyone. Leave the kid alone." Karen whipped around, surprised. "Excuse me, sir. I'm doing my duty as a community member. You don't know what he's doing here?" The man shook his head. "I've been sitting here for 20 minutes. You didn't even talk to anyone. You're the only one making this a problem." Karen's eyes darted around now, realizing people were starting to pay more attention. But she wasn't letting go. She turned to the security guard again, this time asking for his supervisor's number. "This is why our neighborhood's going downhill," she muttered under her breath, loud enough for us to hear. I felt something twist inside me. She still didn't know she was messing with the police chief, and honestly, I wanted to see how deep she'd dig this hole before the truth slapped her in the face. I could feel the air get heavier as more people started to gather, watching the scene unfold. Some stood still, others whispered to each other, but most just looked uncomfortable, unsure of what they were witnessing. The security guard, clearly out of his depth, finally pulled out his radio and said he was going to call in backup, just in case. That set Karen off again. Finally, maybe someone with authority will actually do something about this. She pointed at my son like he'd committed some crime, still ranting about how kids like him don't belong in residential family parks without supervision. She even threw in something about local crime going up, as if my son had anything to do with it. My fists clenched, not because I was angry though, but because I knew what this moment meant for my son. This wasn't new to him. This wasn't even the first time something like this had happened. But watching it unfold in front of me in broad daylight hit different, and still. She didn't know who I was. That's when a black and white patrol car pulled up. I recognized the officer immediately. Officer James, one of my guys, a solid cop who always kept his cool. I stepped out of the car, took one look at the situation, and walked over. Karen rushed up to him like she was handing over a suspect. "Thank goodness you're here," she started, practically out of breath. "That boy over there has been lurking around and refusing to leave when asked." James looked from her to my son, then to me. His eyes widened slightly, clearly caught between his role and the fact that his boss was standing right there. But he didn't say a word, not yet. Karen went on, rambling about how no one's taking this seriously. She had no idea that the person standing next to her wasn't just another bystander, but the very police chief she hoped would back her up. The crowd was now fully locked in. Every eye shifted to me. Every breath felt like it was hanging in midair. And just as James opened his mouth to speak, I finally stepped forward. I took one step forward and looked Officer James in the eye. His lips parted like he was about to speak, but I held up one finger, not yet. I turned to Karen and said calmly, "You've had a lot to say about my son. A lot of assumptions." She folded her arms again and said, "And I stand by every one of them. If people like you won't discipline him, someone has to." The crowd gasped. I saw a woman near the swing set cover her mouth, and even Officer James looked stunned. But before I could say anything else, my son's phone started ringing. He answered it quickly, turned away from the group, and said, "Yeah, okay, I'm with him now." He handed it to me. It was my wife. She was panicked. Turns out, Karen had also sent photos of my son to the local neighborhood watch group chat before I even arrived, claiming a possible trespasser was casing the park. That message had been screenshotted and posted on social media within minutes. Now it was spreading fast. I could feel the shift. This wasn't just a personal incident anymore. This was about to get public. People were already checking their phones. I heard murmurs. Someone mentioned Facebook. Another said the Community app had blown up. The post had my son's face, his hoodie, even the time and location. It was out there. Then came the second. Twist James got a ping on his radio. Dispatch confirmed someone had just filed an official report. Not Karen. Someone else from that group chat. A formal complaint about a young man with gang ties frequenting the park. It had my son's name in it. That's when I realized Karen wasn't alone in this. She had backup. Not from facts, not from truth, but from a network of people just like her. Pushing a narrative built on fear and assumptions. And now, they were trying to make it official. The stakes weren't just about this park anymore. Now my son's reputation and safety was on the line. Just as the cops were about to lead Karen off the property, she suddenly pulled something out of her oversized purse, a crumpled piece of paper. "You think this is over?" she snapped, waving it in the air. "I have power of attorney over this land. All trespassing." Everyone froze. Even Officer Daniels hesitated, unsure if she was bluffing. The tension was thick. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and took the document from her hand. My fingers trembled as I unfolded it, scanning quickly. It looked official, until I spotted the date. It had expired 2 years ago. "She forged the signature," I said, holding it up to the light. The notary stamp was smudged and obviously copied. Officer Daniels called for backup immediately, and within minutes, a detective arrived to verify the document. Karen's face turned ghost white when the officer confirmed what we already suspected. "Ma'am, this is a federal offense," he said sternly. "You're now facing charges for forgery and obstruction." As they led her away, she didn't scream or fight. Instead, she whispered something under her breath that sent a chill through me. "You think I'm the only one?" Lines stuck in my head as the crowd began to disperse and neighbors returned to their homes. I was relieved, yes, but also uneasy. The next day, I received an anonymous envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a photo. It was grainy, taken at night, but it showed Karen standing outside another neighbor's house, whispering to someone in a dark hoodie. On the back, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words. She wasn't working alone. The case wasn't over. We had won the battle, but clearly something bigger had been brewing all along. The envelope haunted me for days. I showed it to Officer Daniels, and he promised they'd look into it, but I could tell even he was rattled. Meanwhile, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. People started walking their dogs without checking over their shoulders. The kids played outside again. The damage Karen caused emotionally and otherwise would take time to heal, but her grip on the community had been broken. At the next HOA meeting, it was standing room only. For the first time in years, residents spoke up freely, no longer afraid of retaliation. We voted in new leadership, people we trusted. I was even asked to join the board, which I never thought I'd do. But after everything that happened, I felt responsible for protecting the peace we finally had. As for Karen, she ended up facing multiple charges, not just for forgery, but also for past HOA fund mismanagement that came to light during the investigation. Turns out, she'd been quietly skimming from community projects for years. No one ever questioned it because she always covered her tracks with fake paperwork and scare tactics. But with everything exposed, she had no choice but to accept a plea deal. She was banned from serving on any HOA board again and had to repay a hefty fine. I never found out who the person in the hoodie was. Maybe it was just a scare tactic, or maybe someone else really had been pulling strings behind the scenes. Either way, I learned to trust my instincts, even when it's uncomfortable. This whole thing reminded me how one voice can make a difference, and how silence can let the wrong people lead. We may not have all the answers, but we got our neighborhood back. And that, honestly, felt like justice.